So I am so happy to see you all. Greetings to all of you. And some of you perhaps know me earlier, and some of you maybe for the first time seeing me. I am Joseph Ratnam from India, Chennai. I am the master trainer of Neurocracy. I will give you one or two sentences about Neurocracy later. And I am also the global coordinator for Neurocracy. So, Neurocracy is an alternative system of governance in place of democracy. Democracy works on majority and minority in numbers, whereas Neurocracy works on socio-critical principles. Some of you may be already knowing sociocracy on those principles. And it's an alternative system of governance starting from the neighborhood. So every neighborhood will be formed as a parliament or a unit of governance, and that will be networked at various higher levels. So in each neighborhood, there will be only around 25 to 30 families, so that the coordination, the relationship within themselves will be very strong, and they can coordinate with each other and take charge of day-to-day issues what they face as neighbors. And in every neighborhood, we will have 3 units. One is for the children from the age 6 to 15. We call them children parliament. Then we have the second unit for the youth from the age 16 to 25. And then we have the third unit for the adults, that is from the age above 26. So these 3 units will be functioning in the same neighborhood, and they will be double linked, so that overall coordinations among themselves will be there. And I used to very proudly say, Neurocracy is the only system of governance in the world history where even a child of 6 years old is actively participating in day-to-day governance of the neighborhood. So in democracy, people above the age of 16, or in some cases even little less or something like that, only can vote or something like that. But in Neurocracy, in this system, even a child of 6 years has a voice. It can raise its opinion. It can share its opinion in the decision-making forum. So that's what Neurocracy means. Now, the relevance of children's parliament with the democratic education. I've been there in Ukraine the previous year in 2019, having very good discussions with a number of group people there, those who attended the UDEC conference. And I found this democratic education has come a long way to give more authenticity for the learning process of the children. So I was very highly taken up the way the democratic schools function. I was very much impressed the way the democratical schools, the education principles, work. And I was very happy. And I wanted to be part of that. That's why I joined the European Democratic Education Council as a member. And I am so happy for the organizers, the council members, to take me as a member. And I really appreciate being here, sharing some of my thoughts with you all. And this is about the work, what I do. And I've been doing this work for the past 27 years. I have trained hundreds and hundreds of schools all over the country here, and even some places, some schools in abroad in Europe and African continent. And I have trained thousands of teachers on teachers empowerment program. And I've been training lots of various parents groups now on the topic of how to be a successful parent. And this is a very big issue among the parents now, to be a parent, to be a good parent, successful parent. And I do also consultation for couples and as well as the children. And this I do for the past 27 years and I enjoy. So I am associated with children for a long period of time. So I somewhat have learned more from the children than what I have given to children. I have given very little to children, but I have learned a lot from them. And in this, what I feel very strongly is, though I highly appreciate the system of, democratic education process, I also feel it is relevant to add some more component to this democratic education system where the children grow to be holistic human beings. You know, in the syllabus in the normal schools or in our schools, in democratic schools, we have syllabus. We have syllabus, though not designed by somebody else, but designed by the teachers and the children and things like that. Given to the understanding how the world is now, we know wherever we go, poverty is there, health issues. Now see the pandemic now, very high risk health issue. Then we have terrorism everywhere, war, killing, revenge, hatred, building their own barriers and all that. So many things are happening, which is very destructive. Why these things happen? Where is the big, the point of, where we have to concentrate, where we have to give focus? I remember last year I visited a school. I was invited in one state in North India, and I was having conferences in many schools in that state. And in one school where I was supposed to have the conference, say about after 2-3 days, they canceled the program. The reason was the school was attacked, and a few million rupees worth of computer, that and this, vehicles, buses, the school buses, all the property of the school was destroyed. So they canceled the program, but I went there. I wanted to, since the time was allotted, I went there not to conduct the conference, but to learn what has happened there. So I was asking the correspondent of the school, what happened? Such a big tragedy in the school. So much being burned. And few of the students were hit and they were affected. Some of them were hospitalized. What happened? And the correspondent told me, some present students and some past students, along with the teachers, created a havoc. All this mess was done by the students. And it was a very known school in that particular state. Then I asked the correspondent, okay, I feel so sorry. And when I hear that it is from the students, present students and the past students, and still more I am worried. Which means, what are we giving to our children, to our students, through our education? If they cannot understand the system of the school, and if they cannot abide by the rules of the school, and if they cannot understand or respect the teachers, the management, and the other fellow students, what type of education we are giving them? What they have learned from us? Is it that we are happy to give them the numbers and the letters? Subjects like English, maths, that and this, physics, biology, all this? Or is there something beyond that, which we have lacked in giving, lacked in imparting to the students, which the students have to learn and make it inherent qualities in them? So I was sharing the idea with them, what I usually share with other teachers. Beyond this academics, beyond this academics, the book knowledge, the syllabus, there is something more important for the children, students to learn, to be a holistic personality in life. Otherwise, they will miss everything. They will be a very successful painter, successful dancer, successful professional, a doctor, successful engineer, successful lawyer, a successful politician. But a big question is that person a successful human being? And today, that humanness is lacking in all these aspects. That's why the whole world is suffering today. So I usually say this to everywhere, and to these participants here, you are all very honorable, respectable people, and with lots of experience. So you know it. I need not say this, but still, to remind each other and help each other. I want to learn from you also how we can strengthen the holistic approach of the students, holistic personality of the students. So in this academic qualification, we give focus to intelligent quotients, IQ. And I used to say, even last time in Ukraine, I shared this. If IQ is the only issue which we are talking about and which we are concerned about to give to the students, having a cell phone with a net connection is more than enough today. Because in the net, you have all the junks, whichever is required. In knowledge is there, everything is there. Schools are not required. Schools are not at all required. Whatever the schools, the syllabus we teach to the children, it is there available on the net. But there are certain things which are not available, which only we can give as schools, as management, as teachers. Even there may be some subjects which we deal with in the net available, but definitely children, students are not going to open these topics and look for them. There are other interesting topics for them to look into and games to play, but not this. So it is high time that our schools, especially our democratic schools, give little space for this type of quotients other than the intelligent quotients. And for, I would say that for every alphabet, there is a quotient, invariably. There are various other quotients which are required for the children to be more holistically developed. We start with AQ. When we talk about AQ, we have attitudinal quotient, acceptance quotients. When we talk about attitudinal quotient is what type of attitude the student develops through our education system. Attitude towards self, attitude towards other students, attitude towards the parents and the family, attitudes about the neighbors and the society at large, and attitude about the nature, environment. Then when we talk about acceptance, there are certain things which we have to accept as it is. We cannot change because it is there as it is. So how do we develop our children, students, to accept the reality as it is? Then accountability, how a student makes himself accountable to things which happen or actions of omissions and commissions. Approachability, how good a student is for others to approach them. Adaptability, this all comes under AQ. So we give little focus to all these quotients so that the child learns all these qualities. Then we have BQ, behavioral quotient. And I need not deal with that very elaborately. But the next one, break-free quotient, is very, very important for all of us to impart to the students. Break-free means every individual, however big or small, we create our own barriers around us. Barriers in the name of nationality, barriers in the name of our language, barriers around us in the name of the race or the color, or the education, the qualification what we have, or the money what we have. We build our own barriers around us. These building barriers make us look at others of something different. Once they start looking at others differently, then the divisiveness happens. We become divided between ourselves and the others. Once we become divided, then of course all other negative things starts. So breaking free from all the barriers which we have built around us, very, very important for every student to come out of these barriers, and we call it break-free quotient. How good a child is in this break-free quotient. Then CQ, we have communication quotient, compassion quotient, civic quotient, character quotient, community sense quotient, credibility quotient. Perhaps it may be too long to deal with all these things because we won't have time. So I will just read the topics so that you can take note of it, or at the end I will just in the chat box I will give you my email ID. You can contact me if you want further explanation on those things. Then we have DQ, discipline quotient and dependability quotient. How much others can depend on me, my discipline. Then EQ, emotional quotient. Today, each individual, each person is bundles of emotions. How good are we in handling our emotions? Emotional quotient, ecological and environmental quotient, empathy quotient, etiquettes quotient. It's all very, very, very important things for the students to learn. And the family is a very good unit where they can learn, but today there is no time for the parents to sit with children, to inculcate this type of things, because everyone is busy. So the schools, especially our schools, should give little focus to all this. Then we have FQ, fraternity quotient, forgiveness quotient, fairness quotient. Gratitude quotient, generosity quotient, GQ, HQ, humaneness quotient, honesty quotient, humility quotient, and health quotient. And today, health quotient is very, very poor among our children. And in this pandemic, I remember I've been talking to lots of these neighborhood parliaments and children parliaments and youth parliaments on this. How we can save ourselves. How they can save their own neighbors, their own relatives, family people, and this. This is only awareness, health awareness. And pandemics, leave alone this COVID. So many has already come, and so many may come in the future. How are we going to handle all these type of disasters? Leave it to the medical industry, leave it to the pharmaceutical industry, or we are going to handle ourselves. So every student should learn to handle all these type of disasters, pandemics by themselves. And it is very easy. It's very interesting. And if they are well aware of the health quotient, if they develop that health consciousness or health quotient, definitely they can handle it. And IQ, integrity quotient and intuitive quotient. JQ, justice quotient and joyfulness quotient. KQ, kindness quotient. Then LQ, leadership quotient, logic, law-abiding quotient. And see, this all in the European context, in other countries and other Western countries, students are more better in all these questions, because by nature, the system of the governance there, the system of the whole, how the society functions, they are better equipped to deal with all these things. But these are all more, prepared in the context of our Asian context or Mid-East context, where the children, the students have to give more focus to this. Then MQ, moral quotient, mindfulness quotient. I remember once a student, when I was talking about mindfulness, that student asked me, "What do you mean by mindfulness?" Then I shared a small story to that child. There was a mother always going to the next house asking for some help, like, "Can you give me some salt? Can you give me some little chili powder? Or can you give me some little that and this?" Very little things, small things. So the child asked the mother, "See, we have everything here in our house, but why do you go to the neighbor's house and ask for this little salt? We have plenty of salt here." The mother said, "See, the neighbors, they're very poor. They very often come to our house asking for, for some cheese, butter, or wheat flour, that and this. So when they come here and ask from us, they should not feel bad of coming to our house and asking for it. So I make them feel that they are equal to us by asking from them little things which they can give, which already they have, so that they don't feel bad anymore to come to us to ask things from us." That is mindfulness, I explained to the student. And the student was very happy. So this type of little things, mindfulness. And in our society nowadays, it is very needed, very much needed. The nature quotient, optimism quotient, OQ, patient quotients, peace building quotients, very important. Today, peace building and reconciliation has become a profession today. And it is needed. It is needed in the families, in the neighborhoods, in the society, between countries, between tribes, between groups, between races, between language groups, and all that. And perseverance quotient, positivity quotient. And even this morning, I was talking to my daughter about this positivity, because she is pregnant. She was a bit afraid. She is alone in some other country. She was so afraid to face the pregnancy. So I was talking to her about this positivity, and she said, "Yes, Dad, it's really wonderful, fantastic." So it's all the children have to develop, the students have to develop these inherent qualities in them. Then relationship quotient, RQ, reliability quotient, responsibility quotient, reasoning quotient, respect quotient, risk-taking quotient. Nowadays, students do not want to take any risk of uh, anything in their life. They want easy life, easy go lifestyle for everything, which we have to, because I remember we always talk about success. We always talk about success. I remember one incident which disturbed the whole world. There was a very highly talented, intelligent person who studied in India, and he was employed by one of the multinational company in America. And he was paid so, so much payment, very high payment. And he was very happy. And he was considering himself as a successful person in life. Fantastic. Fantastic. Everything went on well. And it's a true story also. It's a true story. And he got married and took his wife also to the States. And they were very happy, and they had a child of about a year, 1-year-old child. And he had his own house, which he bought it for on loan. He had 2 cars, one for himself, one for his wife, very costly cars, and that also taken on loan. Very good, fantastic. Life was very happy. All of a sudden, there was a recession in 2008. Everything started falling down. His company almost became broke. So he lost his job. All of a sudden, it happened. Then, already he is deep neck on loans, borrowings. Now, he knocked many companies. Even for half of the payment what he was getting earlier, he was ready to be employed. But nobody employed him because the recession for the whole country. And many of the Western countries faced this recession in 2008. And it went on for 2 months, 3 months. Pressure from the banks where they had taken loan, borrowed money, and it mounted up. And after 4 or 5 months, there was no way out for them to escape the situation. The whole family, including the child, the husband, the wife, and the child, committed suicide. Why I want to say this? It is because we always teach the children to be successful in life. But we don't teach them also to the reality of the failure, how to face failure, how to take risk, the other part of life. This is very, 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 very important for our students to learn all this. And I remember in some of the schools, they had shared in the last conference, the way they handle the children, the way they handle the group dynamics among children, among the students, it's really wonderful. It's really wonderful. It makes them come out of any bad situation. So I'm so happy with all those things. And really, we democratic schools are moving in the right direction. I'm so happy about it. But at the same time, little more focus to all the things which we are talking about here. Then SQ, sharing quotient. To what extent our students are ready to share? Actually, all these quotients are prepared for the Indian or Asian context. So please don't feel bad, because already you may be having a lot on this. And when I visited last time to Europe in some other countries for the conferences, I had talks with many school students there. I found certain things where our schools, democratic schools, can play an important role. These are all normal school students with whom I met, the normal regular school students. But I felt where the democratic schools can play a leading role. They can be a trendsetters for the others regular schools also, because so much we are already doing it. But at the same time, I used to say, when I talk to our schools here in India, I used to ask, you give very many good grades and awards. Every year there will be annual school day. In that school, for the students, they give awards. For good student, very studious student, good student in games, those who are in games, and good in dancing, good in that, good in drawing, good in all this. For all these talents, they give awards. But none of the schools give awards. This child is very lovable child, the best lovable child in the school. So we give an award. We give an award to this child. This child is the best forgiving child in the school. So we give award. Or we give award to this child, the most sharing child in our school. So we give award. So we encourage children by giving awards, even for these things. So this is how we give focus to our students, that these type of questions are more important than the academic inputs what they get. So then we have social quotient, the simplicity quotient, service quotient, sincerity quotient, and selflessness quotient. Then we have TQ, tolerance quotient, teamwork quotient, truth and temperance quotient. Then UQ, unity quotient, VQ, value quotient, and WQ, wisdom quotient. Now, these are the quotients, and there are still more quotients, which I have not named here. And if we can give focus on all these type of things to our students in democratic school can be the best school system in the world. And I'm so happy to share these things with our participants here. And when we take it to our schools, I feel our democratic schools can play the pivotal role of leading the other schools, other students. So these are the things I wanted to share with you all. And the participants, I am so happy to be with you, and I am here for another 20 minutes. If you can ask some questions on this or any other things which I have shared earlier about neighborocracy or children's parliament. And I want to say one more thing. In this children parliament, what we have established, we have about 140,000 children parliament all over India, and it is been spread in various other countries also. Already we are having about 49 partners in Europe, spread out to 12 countries. Those who are ready to take up this as a real, in a big way. So this children parliament process is taking place in Europe also. So in this children parliament, all these quotients are taught. That's what I wanted to say. Because it is not an idea. This is not an idea which I want to give it to you, but it's already happening. And the children, those who come out, I mean, grow in this children parliament, they learn the governance system, they take charge of the governance, and they learn all this. And when they grow into adulthood, they become fantastic, fully developed, holistic human beings. And that's why I want to give this this little bit idea, so that the students from our democratic schools will become such developed, fully holistically developed students, adults in the future. Yeah. Any questions? Or if there is any missing link in between, or if you want to know more about the children parliaments and their success and other related things, please. Yes, Maro.
Thank you. You talked about the age range where the children participate, and you said there are the children who are 6 to 16 and then 16 to 25. So in the children's parliaments, there are people who are until the age of 25 or younger. Did I get it right?
Of the children parliament from the age of 6 to 15.
And then you call them youth parliaments, or
yeah, from 16 to 25, we call it youth parliament.
Okay.
Actually,
because I know.
Yeah. Actually, according to UNCRC, United Nations on Convention on Right to Child, up to the age of 18, they are children. But children above the age of 15, they feel that already they are grown up. They don't want to call themselves as children. So in many places we found children, see, we are already grown up, we are youth, why do you call us children? We feel very bit, uneasy and all. Then we say, okay, don't worry, you become youth parliaments. You become part of the youth parliaments. That's to give respect to them. Yeah.
I'm sorry if it was a stupid question, but I was just trying to think because we have youth parliament in Greece. We have this project in Thermi, in Thessaloniki. And I was wondering why don't they call them children parliament? But now I got the difference. Thank you.
I understand, Maro. In Thessaloniki, we have 2-3 people. One Naya is there, and then Sophia is there. Then we have one Tina. They are working with the youth parliaments. And Naya will be bringing their youth parliament members to India in coming February. And I'll be organizing various programs here for them to interact with the youth parliaments in India. And already I'm connected with them. And Naya is also part of this, one of these 49 people in Europe who have been trained by us and who have been working on this. And definitely in Greece, especially in Thessaloniki and some parts, a big movement will happen very soon.
Yes, and if I'm allowed to say this, the Hellenic Sociocratic Center, who has just begun it, is very active, and this project in Thermi is their ambassador.
Yes,
I'm very glad.
I know there is one Barbara from Austria coming to Thermi and all, connecting this.
Yes.
Yeah, she is a very close friend of mine. Every week we have discussion on the developments. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mara.
Hello, I'm Mito from Greece and have another stupid question. Maros wasn't stupid. I'm just wondering, since measuring IQs, intelligence quotients, is done by numbers, do you measure emotional quotients or in relationship quotients? How can do you have a sort of measuring system?
So actually,
I was a provocative question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was talking about democracy, I was talking about numbers. And when I was talking about the academics, I was talking about numbers and letters. So in the academic system, what we teach is only numbers and letters, 1, 2, 3, and calculations, that and these formulas and the letters, words, and all this. So in IQ, actually what happens is, we teach the children, I'm talking about the normal school, not the democratic school. The normal school, we teach them to write the exam. Nothing more than that. Once the exam is over, everything is over for the students. Because if you ask the 5th grade student, what you learned on 4th grade, the student will not be able to say what that student learned on the 4th grade. Because the child studied for the exam. Exam is written, that's all over. So that is not going to come along with the child till the end. Actually, the child has to study for the life, not to get only for the professional employment. And today I used to say, education alone, academic education alone is not going to decide the fate of a child. That is not enough, because today the world is with so much of complexity. And having good marks alone is not going to decide the future of the child. There are other things which is needed. For example, I read a story a few months back. There was an interview for a high post in one of the big companies. So there were many people, candidates for the interview. And each candidate was called in. And with one question, they were sent out. And there was a student, a candidate also, he was called in. Without being asked any question, they said, you are employed. The candidate said, you did not ask me any questions. You have not seen my certificates. You have not seen my marks. You are not seen my extracurricular activity credentials and all that. He said, already we have noted you. The thing is, what they had done was, just in the entrance of the gate of the building, of the office, there was a water hose with the running water. There was no one to take care of the running. The water was just going on, flowing on the road, waste on the. So this candidate, when he came in, he just saw the hose and put it under a tree so that the tree can be watered. Then just checked where is the water tap, where the hose is connected, and went there and closed the tap and entered in. As he was entering, he saw the stepping mat. In the mat, it was written welcome. The stepping mat was there, but it was the other way about. It was put in the opposite direction. So he bent down and put it neatly as welcome. Then he entered another hall where they were sitting. And before entering in the veranda, there was a fan running. Nobody was there. So he switched off the fan and he entered the hall. And this all was noticed by the interviewers through the web camera, CC camera. So when he entered, you are the person we were looking for. So academics doesn't have any big role in this. So these are the questions we are talking about. So for a holistic development of a person, there are so many other things which we actually in the education system, we don't give. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you very much for asking this question.
Thank you very much. I totally agree with you. I just asked because I'm sure there will be people or mechanisms that will take this idea of emotional quotient and instrumentalize it and then give grades to people. Like you have a high EQ and high IQ and that kind of thing. It's not safe, anybody can use it any way they want it. So if they have bad intentions, I'm sure there has to be guarded kind of thing.
Exactly.
Anyway, yeah, that was a very nice story. Thank you.
Any other questions, please? Yes, Maro.
I was wondering, this children's parliament, how much effect they have, how much they can put pressure on the government, or what's their power? How much power do they really have?
It's a really wonderful question. Really wonderful question. So I want to share one incident. There was a children parliament in one of the remote village in Tamil Nadu, and their school was very much dilapidated. So the roof was broken and it was leaking. A lot of things were happening. At any point of time, the school will just fall down, collapse or something like that. So the children parliament had sent a letter to the headmaster. They had decided in the children parliament meeting and passed a resolution, and the copy of the resolution was sent to the headmaster with a letter requesting that so many children are studying in this school and this is how the situation, please do something to repair the school. The headmaster said, I can't do anything because it has to do with the government, with the higher officials. Then they wrote to the local education officer with a copy of the letter which they wrote to the headmaster, saying that already we have written to the headmaster, but his response is that he cannot do much because the budget has to be allotted by the government, by the higher, education department and all that, and he is completely not able to do anything. Please do something. And the education officer, local education officer, did not respond. So they went to the district education officer with the copies of these two letters as well as a covering letter asking for a help. And the district education officer also did not respond. Then finally they contacted the district collector. Collector is the person in charge for the whole governance of the district. Everything under the district and comes under him. We call him collector, a district collector. So they directly went with the letter, with the copies of the letter which they had sent to the headmaster, local education officer, and the district education officer, and all that, and met the collector in person. Some of the ministers went with the letter. And he was so surprised. He said, what, you are all ministers? He said, yeah, we are all ministers of the Children Parliament. I am the Prime Minister. And he is Education Minister. He is the Finance Minister. He is that Minister. Oh, I see. All that. Okay, fine. What is your letter? So they gave the letter and explained the situation. Immediately, the district collector called the district education officer and asked him, did you get a letter of this sort? He said, yes, sir. Some time back I received. Did you respond? No, sir. Why? Because there is no fund. So there is no any fund allotted to repair the particular school. So I could not respond. Then the district collector ordered then and there on the spot, allocating a budget. He asked the education officer to visit the school in person along with an engineer, prepare an estimation, give a estimation within 7 days. And he allocated the budget, and within 3 months, a new school building was built. It's purely by the effort of the Children Parliament. And what happened during the discussion with the district collector was very interesting. Then the district collector asked the Children Parliament, you said you are all minister, you say, suppose if I don't respond to you, or if I don't respond to you positively, what will you do? The Prime Minister of the Children Parliament said, sir, you have to do it. Why do you say I have to do it? Yeah, we have employed you. We are paying you salary to do our needs. You have employed me. Yes, we the people have employed you. In democracy, people are the masters. And the government is running on our money. You get your salary from our money. In fact, we are paying you the salary through the government. So we have employed you. We pay you the salary to do our needs. So you have to do it. The collector was so much impressed with the way they were talking. He was impressed. How do you learn all these things? They teach us in the Children Parliament. Then that particular district collector became a very strong advocate for Children Parliaments, and he wrote an order to all the panchayat presidents in the district. Within 3 months, every panchayat should have Children Parliament. And every department in the district should have one Saturday specifically allotted to the Children Parliament needs. So that's how it is. It's one example I say. There are hundreds and hundreds of success stories, because when children go to the adults' offices feel very happy. When the adults go, there are a lot of push and pulls. If I go, they are, why this man is coming for this common purpose? What is his interest in that? Which party he belongs to? That and this, so many questions will be there. But when the children go, they are very happy to do it. And thousands of stories I can tell you how the children have dealt with their needs and how the government officials respond. Yes, Maru.
Thank you very much, Joseph. That's very inspiring, and it makes me think that I wish there was a way we could involve more the minors, the under 18. This is something we are always discussing, and we're always wondering about, that why we cannot have them involved in this, yes. in everything. I think, I don't know, the system doesn't want young children, young people to be involved, because the system is afraid that they will change it. That's why they don't want them to be involved.
You were perfectly right, Maro. That is a fear. Because children do not have any politics. They just talk from the heart. They always talk the right things the right way. So people are afraid of it. And people in the governments and in the governance system, they're afraid of it. That's why I always used to tell the children, by children, through this Children Parliament, you are not preparing yourself to take charge of the governance in the future. Right now, you take charge of the governance in your own neighborhood. Not preparing yourself for the future, but take charge right now itself. Because you have the right. As children, you have the right to be part of the governance system, to be part of the decision-making process. So start doing it. You have every right to, according to the UNCRC, every child has the right to express its own opinion, create its own opinion, share this opinion and all that. Yes. Any other questions from anyone else? So this success story such, it's not only that how the government respond, how the government officers respond, but even the society, how it responds. I have a very interesting experience on this, because it was a very hard-earned experience for me, because I went through a lot of trouble for that. There is one area in one of the northern districts. There is a tribal community. There is a community there. They have a system, traditional system, that when the girls come of the age, they are let out for the flesh trade. It's a traditional, professional way of doing it. They do it. So there was no anyone ready to get into this community to stop these practices. So it was very difficult to penetrate. So when we started, it was about, in 2012, when we started talking to these people, getting into, it was very difficult. We faced a lot of difficulties. So the parents also, because for the parents' livelihood, this was the only profession they know by tradition. Tradition of the generation after generation, this is how they do it. So when we started Children Parliament there, the children could change the whole system, which has been followed by them for hundreds of years, and brought the whole thing, set it right, which is a very important, one of the best examples of how the Children Parliament can bring a change, a transformation in the society among the parents also.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, if there are no other questions, everybody feels that they've been heard. There are no more questions or comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.